Hey y'all. I do know many of you. Some of you I haven't seen in a while. It's really good to see you again. I was just looking at your art on Discord. Some of you I may not have met before, so I'm gonna do a little intro for myself, and a little intro to what we're doing here today, and then what we're doing. Ultimately, as the title says, is just hanging out. We've got about an hour to hang out and talk about whatever we feel like talking about. My name is Ariel Cascio. I am a lot of things, but one of those is that I'm an assistant professor at Michigan State University in the Center for Bioethics and Social Justice, which sometimes mean I get called an ethicist or a bioethicist. And a lot of my work with that is saying like ethics doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be something that only people that sometimes get called ethicists get to do. Ethics is something that we're all doing. Every day in our own lives. And so that's sort of the purpose of these hangouts is to talk about anything ethics that's important to us. Ethics means questions of good and bad or right and wrong. It's anytime we wonder what should we do in this situation. It's also these big questions like what is the good life? How do we achieve that good life? What do we owe one another in society? Sometimes we've had particular topics around these hangouts. We've had some about social media policies. We've had some about lies. Today, I thought we could just have an open discussion on current events. There's been a lot going on. I couldn't pick anything. We're thinking about having like some sort of a setup for people to vote on topics, but we don't have that set up yet. So, I just kind of wanted to know what y'all are thinking about. In terms of the other thing about myself that's important to mention, is that I am neuroholographic. I am not autistic, identified or I don't identify as autistic or diagnosed. So I come from a little bit of an outsider standpoint. I came to CASY through Dawn. Like Dawn, I'm an anthropologist, a little bit of a different type of anthropologist. Um, but I have been studying autistic culture for a little more than 10 years now, I think. So I'm just really glad to get to learn about it with you all. So that's the only pitch that I have. Um, I think Dawn sometimes asks us to mute when we're not speaking and to leave the chat for people who communicate only through the chat. And if you want something in the chat to be read out loud, to put the word read, READ, before it. And then I'll go ahead and read it out loud. So, what's on your mind? I don't know if anything they want to talk about in good company here today.
Sounds like it's very hard to start. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
So why don't I just um, start with something easy?
Okay.
Uh, who's going to the self-care series this week?
Awesome.
Great. Got a lot of familiar faces here. Looks like your hand up. Would you like to say something?
Maybe I can read the hands and the thumbs up as yeses to Summer of Self-Care. Yeah. Just saying they're going to it. Awesome. Love to hear it. I want to ask about doom scrolling. I'm doing a lot of doom scrolling, and I just got better at not doing it and then worse and then all of that. How are y'all doing with doom scrolling when it comes to self-care? Any tips, or is this even a concept that's useful to you? Do you have your hand up a moment ago?
I can't find the.
Oh, sorry. What are you looking for?
I just can't find the raise hand thing, and also I have a question.
That's okay. Just jump in.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, or is I'm gonna go?
Go ahead.
All right. So, I want to respond to the doom scrolling, but so if I am able to um unmute and speak, then I shouldn't use chat. Did I understand that correctly?
I think that's what Don has been suggesting. Roger, am I understanding that correctly?
Uh, yeah, I think if you can speak,
Oh,
then
you're very
by all
quiet.
means, I think the preference is speaking, but I guess the chat we try to save it for folks who prefer to not speak but really want to communicate. So we don't want too much traffic in the chat, but it's very flexible. So there's no hard rules.
So I was going to answer your question about the doom scrolling. I realized in the last year or two that it's just so detrimental to my mental health that I just had to stop doing it, or even anything that looked like doing it. And I'm fortunate because my husband is a lifelong politics buff. He's a historian. He listens to all this stuff, reads it. So I get good quality analysis of things, and if something important happens, he tells me. But I don't have to spend my time or even feel compelled to do it. And since I'm an editor and I'm reading stuff all day long anyway, I don't need to be reading stuff that's just gonna destroy my mental health. So I just try, and I don't know about technique. I just don't do it. And the minute I catch myself start, even on, like, sometimes I find myself doom scrolling on LinkedIn, and I realize, no, okay, log off. Mhm.
I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind sh sharing what qualifies as doom scrolling, just so we're all on the same page of what it means and what it might look like.
Oh gosh, I think we should all talk about what it means to each of us and what it looks like. I mean, I think for me, it looks like, um, so for, I mean, really detailed. For me, it looks like using the front page of Reddit and just scrolling to see what's on the front page. I'm not looking at a particular subreddit. I'm not looking at a particular fandom or like doing an activity. I'm just like, oh, what are people talking about in the world? And then, focusing on like the negative things. And so that's where I catch myself saying, like, this is just six headlines, and I'm not even reading articles. I'm just like looking at headlines, right? So I'm like, this isn't educating me. It's getting really repetitive, but I keep looking to be like, oh, like maybe one of these headlines will be like the one that saves us all or something like that. And it's not going to be. Um, so I think it's like maybe I think of it as doom scrolling and like any sort of scrolling that's like feeding my sense of doom, is how those words relate to each other. I did have some luck for a while playing what I learned is called an idle clicker. I finally caved and downloaded a phone game, and it was really helpful for a while. And now I've just kind of gone back to the doom scrolling, but trying to set aside, like, if this is your like fun, soothing phone time, why don't you do something that's actually fun rather than something sad? So that's what it means to me. What does it mean to y'all?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I always joke that I'm like a chronically online person, sometimes for better or for worse. But so I've had like a long story, I guess, like history with doom scrolling and like just being online too much, like most of the time. But like for me recently, like there was a period where I had my husband, like per my request, make a social media limit on my phone. be like, okay, I get 30 minutes a day. Do not ever give me the password unless it's some emergency. Which what's an emergency on Instagram? Um, but like, so for a while I was doing that, and then I like kind of transitioned out of it. I was like, I think I'm okay. Um, and definitely though, for me, I've noticed now that doom scrolling, in my definition, is like the mentality I have when I'm scrolling. Cause, and also like following and unfollowing whatever, either helps me or does not. Cause I've actually found like social media platforms to be like very almost either not just entertaining, but educational too. Especially as like hearing from other late diagnosed autistic people. So like I recently have been just like unfollowing anyone who's like, oh well, seeing how far along they are in their life goals like makes me sad about myself. So like even though like no harm, like I don't wish bad things, like but unfollow because like what am I gonna do? Just scroll through their like beautiful pictures and so like I'm using it or trying to at least use it more as um like an educational slash connecting with people who have similar experiences to me currently. And I think that it's actually like I haven't felt like that doom sensation or that anxious feeling recently because I think I'm making those changes and using it in a different way. So, I mean, I did find some success with um, noticing when I tended to turn to scrolling. And if I had the impulse to open up Facebook or scroll, then instead I would just grab my notebook and my journal and just write down like what's going on. And usually it's because I'm getting into a place where I feel really stuck in whatever I'm doing and like maybe overloaded or overwhelmed. I don't know, it's just I'm stuck and it feels like a huge demand, whatever the next step is and whatever task I'm doing. So if I process it by writing down all the possibilities, including looking at Facebook and just doom scrolling or doing other steps to get unstuck, then it's really important to write down the possibility of just doom scrolling. And then if I look at all those, then it's somehow easier to see what I really need to do for the next little step. All of that being said, though, this morning I'm extremely tired, and I joined here because I was doom scrolling, and the notification popped up on Discord that this meeting was starting. So yeah, I was like, I'll do this instead of doom scrolling. It'll be a lot more like I'll feel better afterwards than if I was doom scrolling.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for letting my Discord notification interrupt your scrolling.
Okay, now I have to remember what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Um, for me, I realized there's a few different kinds of things that qualify as doom scrolling, and it's all related to how negative it makes me feel, how distracted from what I need to be doing. And so there's doom scrolling in news, political or other kinds of news. And that's what I especially stay away from. But I got off of Facebook about 6 or 8 months ago, and because I couldn't deal with it for a number of reasons. I'd been on and off it for years, and in the end, I just said, no, this has never worked for me. It's not working for me. I'm done. And that's why I use the CASY Discord server, along with a couple of other autistic communities Discord servers also. It's just a level of numbers of people and input that there's only 100 people on the CASY Discord server, total. And it's a level of stuff I can deal with, and also I know the people on there a little bit better. So even when people do raise something that might be a negative thing in their life or something that's happened or whatever, it's much easier to just connect with them and that idea and either sympathize or take something away from it or whatever, so that so that was my way to deal with Facebook. Um, my comment about LinkedIn was because I found so much political stuff of political in so many ways, has sort of blown up in LinkedIn, and it's a it's an I was going to say upsetting or annoying, but neither of those is correct. It's just a thing I've found difficult to deal with is that while I love the fact that there's so many more autistic or ADHD people, advocates and all kinds of people on LinkedIn and people who've been on there identifying so that we all know who each other is. But I find there's a lot of doom creating going on there, that there's so many what end up to me feeling negative because they're so filled with anger. And this is anger I understand. I feel the same anger. When I have to deal with it myself, to then see 50 or 100 other people doing it at the same time, I can't do it, and I don't feel like I have anything to say that's going to be helpful. I think about, geez, could we be doing some of this differently? But I don't know. But that's sort of, there's different levels to doom scrolling for me.
This kind of leads me to a potential next question. Um, a number of us have talked about tensions between like doom scrolling and like other choices. Like, could I be doing something, or is this doing something, or do I need to do this to be informed? Like, what's the trade-off, right? This fear of like not doom scrolling, or at least not scrolling. Like, there might be doom that comes with it, but also information. I really like this idea of doom creating as well. I think that implies a similar tension between like, should I, you know, repost this to bring awareness, or should I not repost it to avoid creating doom? How do y'all navigate that sort of balance?
When it comes to doom scrolling and doom creating, like reposting a bunch of artworks that you most like about it to the point where you'd be the one who kept spamming and doom scrolling all day while lazing about, then that means that's gonna make you a lazy slouch and a phone zombie because you've been staring at your phone all day doom scrolling. So what you should do? Try to be more productive. Like, maybe you could try making artworks of your own, or maybe like play idle games that you mentioned, or maybe like do your own homework and take care of your own home and do chores and all that. Productivity is key. You don't have to just lie there on the ground watching on your phone and doom scrolling all day and doom creating about something that you like. I mean, come on. There has to be a way to be more productive versus just reposting anything that you like the most. Sure, I admit it. I admit doom scrolling on Facebook like this, and doom scrolling on Twitter, and doom scrolling on Blue Sky, and of course, I've been reposting some on Twitter and Blue Sky about what I like about it. But if I have the chance to be more productive, that means I have to think outside the box when it comes to never doom scrolling about and lazing about all see doom scrolling stuff. That way you won't end up becoming a phone zombie. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mentioned redirecting that into journaling too. Another idea in that list.
Yeah. Journaling works too. As well as writing down your diary about what you were doing over the course of your life. Hmm? I mean, of course, it's fun to write down all the records that you've been doing so far, but you may become more addicted to phone. But books can save your lives sometimes, as well as paper and pen. Because going back to traditional ways much more will make you productive than the last time you were introduced to future technology like AI and smartphones and computers and all that. I mean, it's nothing to be productive sometimes, but technology can be productive too. Like, for instance, if you want to work on your artwork, drawing tablets will make you productive. If you want to work on traditional drawing, pen and paper can bring you productivity when writing and drawing stuff like that. And there's nothing like a good old way to be away from social media like Facebook or Twitter like that, because sometimes you may end up in a rabbit hole full of rumors and all that political stuff going on.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you. I think you've introduced.
Some concepts. I want to let someone else speak. Is that all right?
yeah.
You're
Okay.
generating a
A
lot.
lot of good discussion, and then we'll come back around. Thanks.
Yeah, I just, um, yeah, I mean, I like what you're saying, and the art part is, I wanted to talk about that part. I'm an artist, and I think what happens a lot of times to me is, well, there's several things around that one. First of all, doing something art related usually takes me more initiation energy than doom scrolling, and so that's like a big hurdle for me. So, I mean, one thing to do, but I've never gotten around to doing it, a possible solution is to like have it already set up and figured out what I might do. But I haven't tried that out really. The second thing around the art is like there's a big difference between like art, like something you want to turn out, you really want, like you want it to maybe be a piece that you can turn out really well, and then just kind of art that you don't care. And I feel like the time that I have been able to get a lot of re-energizing from art for me has not been either of those. Like, I mean, sometimes if I just doodle, it is calming and it can make my mind get a lot quieter. But as far as like actually re-energizing, what I've noticed is if I do something that's purposeful but very, very low stakes, then I can get a huge surge of energy after that. That's kind of a hard thing to always recreate though. And then just the other thing I wanted to comment on is, for me, I have found that a lot of times when I turn to just scrolling, and I'm not sure if it really is doom scrolling, it's definitely just scrolling, mindless kind of. It is a source of regulation, but it's a very low, low value, low. For me, it's a um, well, sorry, like it. Well, I can't get that part expressed right now, but sometimes I'm just a whole lot better off if I just let myself lie down under a weighted blanket with nothing in my hand, and then that actually restores me much more than if I was to doom scroll, because it's so much information coming into the brain, and I'm just giving myself more and more and more to process. So I'm a little confused because sometimes a lot of people say that it's really regulating to scroll, and I guess it kind of is, but I feel like that the benefit from it is pretty low for me. Whereas if I just let myself get under a weighted blanket and not look at all the, not be flooding my brain with even more things to process on some level visually and both like topic wise, then it's much more restorative for me. So yeah, I liked what you were talking about. It was like really you brought up really good things, and So looking forward to the rest of the discussion going on.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say at first, I think what said about just lying with the weighted blanket is really great and beautiful because we live in this world where it's like we are always have to be doing something and feel productive. And I think scrolling maybe on some level, it's like we're doing something, right? So I don't think we take enough of those pauses because I feel very deeply that about just lying under a weighted blanket or just like staring out the window. I think that's so important. Um, and then the thing I had to say earlier, which I guess adds a different nuance, but I thought people in this group might connect is so I don't have a big problem with scrolling generally just because my job keeps me so busy. Particularly during the semester, we have a heavy teaching load at my university. So sometimes in the summer I might have a little bit of an issue, but the reason I feel compelled to go on social media, at least from time to time, like Facebook, I'm only on Facebook and Instagram, and then I have LinkedIn in a more professional way, but I feel I have that worry of being left out, right? Like some invites only come through Facebook, or like I'll be in the hallway at my university and someone will be like, "You didn't know that happened to so and so? You didn't see that on Facebook?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't have time to be on," you know what I mean? So it's also this pull of like, is someone trying to make connections and maintain connections? I feel like I have to be present there. But then I also on Facebook especially I have a lot of like past students, and I also feel this like caretaking role of like there are a lot of people on Facebook like they're hurting and I can't help all of them, right? So then it becomes like this. So I my Instagram, which is newer, I've been very careful on what I follow. It's a lot of like turtles and national parks, and I can like scroll through happy pictures, and it's more of like an uplift. So rather than doom scrolling, I feel like it's a little bit more of like an uplift thing. But I just wanted to say that, kind of pull to some of these like social media is like, well, I'm trying to connect and maintain connections. So even if I feel overwhelmed when I go there, I feel like I have to if I want to have like community sort of thing. So I'm tugged in different directions about. I would agree with pretty much everything that I've said. Reminded me of something that I'm the annoying pusher of the Discord server because it's the only thing that really works that well for me, and so I'm constantly reminding people, put stuff on the Discord server, go here, do that. You whatever you do on Facebook, you could do here too. But one thing is that we do have spaces for people where they post photos or their artwork or someone else's artwork or a video they've seen or a link to something they wrote or something important that someone else wrote. And so it because it's a small community and it's autistic and welcoming and accepting, it is a place where someone could say put up some little art thing they're working on, whether it's a cartoon or a meme or something they're writing, but or a photograph, and it I think it gives you a safe space to put something, let you think about doing those things, but you don't have to like have 1,000 people see it or get all engaged in it. It's asynchronous unless two people happen to be on the server at the same time and see what somebody's put up. But it's I think doing those things. I think about doing art or doing something that you like to do, but it's nice to have a place to put it out there, but not feel like, oh my gosh, this is 10,000 people, and what if they hate it? And or I just feel like posting some pretty flower from my garden because it makes me feel good, and so that's a place I think where people could do those little kinds of things to support themselves. Thank you.
And Roger has put a temporary link to our Discord server in the chat. So if you want to see what that's all about, you can click on it now. I don't know how temporary it is. So
I think they
click
last for
now.
like a week or something like that. I always make the mistake of not remembering how old they are and then repost a link that has expired. But I guess you can do permanent links, but I guess the risk is that you don't know where it's going to go. But to the doom scrolling, I'll just add that aware of how I end up feeling afterwards, uh, and it's a really unpleasant feeling. What
What
that
were you
was?
saying, Roger? You were saying you were noticing how you felt after.
Yeah. So it's because I'm wondering, like, if I know someone wrote here, is it just scrolling or doom scrolling? And I think it can be insidious, meaning that we're curious, and we want to learn, uh, and I guess it's always like, well, why are you doing something? So i- if I just become reactive in my scrolling and clicking, uh, then I think that can quickly become a doom scrolling situation, where uh, you're just sort of clicking to things that are making you feel maybe different. Like if you're bored, or I would think that um, if you're bored, then clicking through things helps distract you from the boredom. But I guess the things that tend to grab our attention are sort of a lot of the negative stuff, which then sort of snowballs, and then at the end of it leaves you feeling not good. So I've definitely had that feeling enough times where I'm always like, uh-oh, hold on. I got to make sure I don't do that again. So, so I kind of keep myself in check like that.
Thank you. Now we're at the point of the hangout where I want to ask those of us like me who talk a lot to pause for 30 seconds and give some time for those of you who maybe want a specific invitation to speak. You absolutely do not have to, but if you were waiting to be asked specifically, please consider this your invitation. Feel free to jump in at this time and, of course, anytime. And I will be quiet for 30 seconds now. Anyone have anything to add or react to anything you've heard so far?
Hi, sorry I'm not on camera. I'm making some food here. You're doing great. So glad
Hear you.
so glad to be back here again. Thank you so much to you. I appreciate everything everybody said. I noticed that we are not talking about doom here, and that's why it's so good. I would apologize for the Discord. I technologically have a mismatch with Discord, but yeah, as far as the doom scrolling, I think there was this one hurricane some years back that got stuck down south and just would not let up, and then giant mosquitoes hatched, and like all this stuff. I got pretty obsessed with that. Also with Hurricane Sandy, also with 9/11 for that matter, and I learned that it is a very bad idea to become obsessed with some doom. I learned in college, if it bleeds, it leads. But I find that the most important thing is just not to do it when I'm already in a bad mood, not to do it when I need connection or something. I can only do it to inform myself, and I have to sort of be steeled for it. Like, and so what? I'll just go Google a name or the news about something, and But I tend to want to do it because then you're bored and you're like, oh, this is what I can do right now. But yeah, I think it's very important to stay in the right circles. I post a hell of a lot of trees and flowers on my Instagram, and so I think that's why they give me a lot of cute animal videos. So that's a better scrolling. But they seem to stick in the bad stuff everywhere. And maybe it's just because everybody else is forwarding the bad stuff. I think LinkedIn has suddenly turned towards a social media. And for me, that's okay because I'm connected to everybody with work. And the thing about Facebook is I'm also connected to a lot of work. So as much as I would love to get rid of Facebook, then, just like everything else, like how are we going to make our money to live if we don't, follow the channels where we get that stuff? So I really appreciate each other here these are, and I'm excited about the self-care thing too. I mean, hanging out with you guys is way better than doom scrolling, and, and that's my take on it.
Thank you.
Well, I've heard a couple people mention boredom, and I'm really curious. I mean, we're a tiny little number of people in attendance right now, but um, I don't relate to the I don't relate to doom scrolling because of boredom. For me, it's almost always because I am extremely fatigued and um it, and just struggling to get myself to do the thing I need to be doing, even if the thing I need to be doing is laying under a weighted blanket and resting for a bit, because that has been truly helpful. So I guess I'm really curious, like how many people is um doom scroll out of boredom mostly, and how many are doom scrolling out of like kind of it may actually be like a significant executive function challenge what I'm trying to describe, or I don't know whether to describe it as the majority of mine is either because I'm feeling really stuck or and maybe a lot of demand avoidance, um, or because I'm fatigued. So I guess I'm just really curious, like, what are the reasons people are doom scrolling mostly? I'm curious too. Like, I wonder if the reasons would be different for autistic people and for um, holistic people.
I love mixing in some closed-ended questions in our discussion. Roger, do we have the technology to do a Zoom poll? Is that a possibility?
The
Or I can just put
technology,
something in the
the
chat.
technology is there. It's just learning how to use it.
Okay, I'm gonna put a version of this question with some closed-ended answers in the chat. So I think if we're okay with it, Roger, I think this is a good time to open the chat, ask everyone to put something in the chat. You can put your own reason, or you can put a multiple choice answer, which I will start typing while we go. Does that work for everyone? All right. If I'm less attentive, it's just because I'm typing, but I apologize for that. But please go on with your comment. You can talk while I'm typing if you want to. You don't have to. We can also sit quietly while I type if people prefer. But just to say, don't wait on me.
Oh, I couldn't unmute. um, I just wanted to say that what I meant by boredom was that when you are very tired and you do not have the spoons to decide what to tackle next, So it's kind of in place of entertainment. It's almost the simplest thing to do, rather than get up and go get a weighted blanket or a drink of water or whatever. It sort of envelops me, and then I say, "Oh crap!" I usually don't do it for more than 30 seconds, but yeah. So I like to say I'm never bored because my mind is so busy. But by boredom I mean unable to come up with any energy for anything.
Thank you. And I do have that list in the chat now, and a number of people are putting their in their own words, their reasons for scrolling too. So thank you. We can spend some time reading that. Another thing I've heard from us is sort of some people can kind of tell before you're doing it that this is going to be doom. And some people are maybe surprised by the doom when you're doing it for some other, it may be initial intention. I think that's just an interesting variation to bring up. Some answers are coming in. Do you have any reactions? I think it was your question.
And do you
I'm
respond?
I'm still just processing the responses, and thank you all for responding. It's interesting, and also it was really fun. I enjoyed finding out that the way I define boredom and the way that some others are defining boredom is actually different. And so I didn't know that, and I liked learning that. But thank you all for answering my question. I'm still reading and processing.
I love that too. I love anytime we get to talk about how we all define things, sometimes similarly and sometimes differently.
I think even boredom is such a huge topic, people's what it means to people, and the feelings that come from boredom. I've heard some people just describe boredom as kind of a benign thing, and others it's almost like a physical pain. So I could see, depending on which one you are, where you are, it determines on what you end up doing with it.
Mm.
So I have another question. We somewhere earlier, I think it was you who raised the thing about the summer camp, the self-care thing. And I'm wondering how this discussion of doom scrolling could dovetail with the idea of self-care. And is not doom scrolling an attempt at self-care, or vice versa?
And I'll take some responsibility for that. Roger introduced the concept of self-care, and I was like, "Ooh, you know what that reminds me of? Doom scrolling." Because for me personally, I think that's sort of a self-care sort of practice that I'm looking at is like I need to take care of myself by, I guess, not doom scrolling. We'll just keep it simple like that. So I love hearing how other people are relating to that.
Or I can see that I scroll because uh, that's I'm attempting to practice self-care. And it's like anything in moderation. If you do it too much, or there's nuance in how you do it, which determines whether or not it becomes healthy or unhealthy.
So I want to talk about one of the other reasons that people have brought up for like maybe being on social media in the first place, which might lead to some doom, is attempting to show care for others or to connect with others, to check in. Um, Care is always an ethical question, right? So how are you caring for others or others caring for you right now?
Do you mean in regard? Do you mean a relationship to social media?
Anything. Just in general, how are we caring for each other right now?
Well, in this very moment, we're just sharing our experiences and what works, and it was helpful. You know, somebody said that I don't remember who it was, but somebody said that they were trained to scrolling because like doom scrolling because it was a way of because you know how we always I'm sorry um I'm really
No
sick
apologies
today.
needed. You're
Yeah.
doing great.
Um just because they um sorry. I'll just talk in a minute.
Okay. I am certainly still thinking about social media. We don't need to be limited to social media, but I've heard things about, um, maybe for example, you're sharing something you like, that's showing someone that you like the thing, which can be good. On the other hand, they had mentioned feeling nervous that people won't like your thing. I feel that way a lot, and I don't post very much, for that reason. I sometimes think about, um, it's not really social media, I guess, but like just showing up is sometimes a way that I can show care, whether that's online or offline. Like I know I've had friends who have said, like, I really appreciated that a lot of people showed up, even though they're each individual person's maybe not like doing something, but the fact that everybody showed up to something makes a difference. I don't know if that made sense, but they're just trying to give you some slightly more concrete examples of what I'm thinking of.
I like that. I think that sort of being there, being present, being available, um, like in the Zoom group, not everyone speaks, and that's totally fine, but people took time to share, they shared a part of their time, with a group of folks. And there shouldn't be pressure that people have to do anything, except just share what they want or sort of be there, be available, be present, or so it kind of reminds me of I know we had one member say sometime that uh he when someone was having a problem, he'd always feel compelled to provide some kind of a solution or give some kind of advice or counseling. And one day someone told him, "You don't have to do that. Just sit there and be there."
Mm,
And that's all you have to do. And that really stuck with me because so much of us, I guess maybe depending on our backgrounds, maybe what professions we're in. I guess there's this sort of compulsion that we feel like we have to be talking or we feel like we have to be acting. But that's not, you don't have to be doing anything, to be showing that you care.
mm,
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like listening, like and having someone like Roger said, like they don't have to like solve, just being like, I hear you, right? So that you're not like sitting alone with a moment or experience, but that someone can like earnestly hear you, I think is really, really huge. I mean, that's something I've thought about a lot as I've gotten older. being there for other people in that way, but also trying to find people who can do the same for me.
Alright, so what I was trying to say earlier is that somebody, and it's actually really frustrating that I don't remember who it was. I think that was what my glitch was about. Said that also I'm probably still in pretty deep burnout from my job. But anyway, so somebody said that scrolling kind of feel if you feel like you're doing something productive. Or you feel like you're doing something, like that can be easier than just literally stepping aside and resting, under a weighted blanket or whatever, laying down on the floor or whatever you need to do to regulate. So, yeah, it was just really helpful to hear that because I think I have realized that, but I hadn't put it into words, and somehow classifying it, I think is going to help me recognize it for what it actually is, and that will make it a little bit easier for me to break out of the pool of it. Another thing, though, that I'm thinking as we're talking is, I see in these autistic educational spaces, I've stepped out of most of them because a lot of them seem like they're getting quite toxic, and I've been extremely busy with work. But now I have a break in my work. But it seemed like that there was this huge thing of like, oh, it's fine to just scroll however much. This is the way I regulate myself. And I really don't feel like, I mean, I do agree that that it is a form of self-regulation, but to me, it's not a, like with the self-care thing, it's not a very rejuvenating form of regulation for me. It's like one of the lowest ways to regulate for me. So I'm happy it's being discussed, and I'm a little confused about the groups where people seem to think that their scrolling is a great way to self-regulate. I mean, I guess if it works for you, that's great, but I definitely am happy we're talking about it because I am fully aware that it's not me taking the best care of myself, and it's actually flooding me with more information that's got to be processed on some level, which is kind of really super counterproductive. I mean, but there are times where yes, of course. Like I've had wonderful connection through social media, but that doesn't feel like doom scrolling. That's something different.
As I was saying about doom scrolling, but sometimes it could be harder when people just downright block you or kick you out of servers on Discord or kick you out of all those group stuff going about. But then again, I've been through 5 stages of grief like that, but I can't help myself. It's the same thing as doom scrolling, as it holds negative feelings. Negative energy equals lack of productivity. But acceptance is the end of the tunnel because you might have to let go of everything and accept that one day they will allow me in. Or not, to be perhaps, because one way or another, I've been through 5 stages of grief no matter where I'm at. Either on social medias, even on in real life. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to let go of everything I hold dearly, like movie watch on Discord and my friend's Discord and holding on to my greater bonds, but block me. Let's just say that my account was hacked and things
go ugly. And thankfully, Discord managed to temporarily disable my account before things go worse for the hacker. So I finally re-entered my password so that I got myself my account back. It's kind of hard to go through all this trouble like that because it kind of gave me negative energy to be motivated like that. Otherwise, I feel down to weather, like feeling bad when it comes to hackers like that. And I don't like hackers and self-bots on Discord, but believe me, my bonds are stronger than ever deep down. I mean,
Yeah, I just
Oh, can I ask a question?
sure.
what is this?
Self-bot.
Oh, it's like when someone made a bot that made other accounts do automatic things like bulk messaging and all that. It's pretty bad once you think about it. And
Yeah, I've
Discord
never
tries
thought of
to deal with self-bots like that, and hackers too. Because Discord's the one who is responsible with artificial intelligence monitoring in social medias. It's kind of new to me because I never really acknowledged self. I never really acknowledged artificial intelligence in social medias like that because Discord's more like a gaming social media.
Yeah, it's new to me too. Thank you for walking through it. I saw you said it on Discord and I was going to ask you there, but I can ask you now. I want to acknowledge that we're at 2 o'clock. So if anyone also is waiting for an official, we are closed. It's okay for you to leave. Please consider this that closure. I will also stay around for a little bit longer if anyone wants to stay on and finish their thoughts or conversations or ask questions, anything like that. Thank you all for being here today.
Is there such thing as a mental fidget?
Chris, I love that question. I think there is, but
The doom scrolling maybe is, I don't know, maybe it's something like a fidget in your head, but you do sort of with your head, with sort of different ideas or whatever, sort of flashes before your eyes. But I guess the difference between, say, like a fidget you would use with your hands is, I guess those can help regulate. But I guess the mental stuff can escalate depending on what you come across next. So, I could see something at first being helping to regulate, uh, but then because some of the algorithms, reward or promote conflict, you're eventually fed things that are stressful. So what was originally uh, regulating, has become sort of escalatory and unhealthy.
I'm like Googling it and I'm not finding anyone using the term mental fidget other than just like ads for physical fidgets, some of which I think are typos from metal fidget. But some of which I think they're just like, well, this physical thing like occupies your mind, so it's mental. But I'm very curious about this idea.
yeah. So, oh gosh, several things. I mean, first of all, I love the way that um that you were saying that. Like, certainly something that self-regulation can turn into overstimulation. Definitely, like something that you do that's like a stim, for regulation. You can I've seen a family member like stim
with the Rubik's Cube to the point that the Rubik's Cube started looking like it was melting in the hand to him. And so the regulation turned into overstimulation. And I think I absolutely can see that correlation with social media scrolling. Yeah, there's a regulating element, but like I was saying, there's just more and more processing I'm feeding my brain. So at some point it does become more depleting actually, because it is like an overstimulation after regulation. But additionally, I want to address this mental fidget. I really am curious if other autistic people have had this experience like I have. I don't know. It has overlaps with OCD though, so I don't know where it starts and stops. And it was not well, I think it was, I don't fully understand it, but I like, with the ruminations of things, like I would go over something over and over in my mind, and I finally had words for the like an analogy, and the analogy that I used was, it was like constantly moving a Rubik's cube in my hand, but never being able to solve the Rubik's cube. So it was always around some problem that I had completely fixated on, and there was just tons of rumination. And it's interesting because this is people around me, when I started communicating that, were saying, like my therapist and my mom were saying, well, that sounds really painful, and don't you want to break out of that? And I would kind of be like, no, it's just the way it's always been, and on some level it almost did feel comforting. And I think through some multiple years of therapy, finally, with somebody who actually works with a lot of autistic people and was able to help me with stuff, I kind of think at this point that maybe it was because it was like me trying to self-soothe intellectually instead of experiencing the emotion and processing it, because I had no tools to be able to withstand my very big emotions, and had many years where I think I became alexithymic for very many years. So as I began, it was kind of a way to avoid having to feel the emotion, but I was just endlessly working with the problem, but never getting anywhere at all with it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense. I don't know if anybody else relates. I'm super curious because I have not heard it talked about or written about, and maybe it's unique to me. But in all that sense, I guess I am saying my Rubik's Cube analogy to try to explain what it was like, that's where I'm like, it does kind of feel like a mental fidget. But it was a really unhealthy one. I don't do that as much.
Anyone relate?
I think it's a really interesting question, Roger, and so I've been thinking about it. My immediate thought was that I use music in a way that could be considered a mental fidget. If depending on what the purpose of the fidget is. For instance, I sit here with this because if I've got something to do with my hands, I can listen to what people are saying better. So my fidget is regulatory. It's helping me. But also, I do a lot of repetitive music. It's a big part of how I stim, and it's sometimes I put on a specific thing just to kind of like let my mind rest. Maybe I'm just lying down and put the weighted blanket on, or I'm staring out the window, or whatever. And so, in a way, it seems like that could be kind of the same thing. It's the thing, the music becomes just the thing that's doing what my hands are doing, but it's a letting me sort of drift somewhere. But I think it's a really interesting question.
I just like having these kinds of conversations where, you know, everyone experiences stuff that we don't really quite understand. I mean, we notice it's happening. Uh, and maybe sometimes we don't notice it's happening. And then when someone else brings it up, it's like, oh, hold on. I can relate to that, you know? But I don't know. I mean, I think part of these conversations is like, putting it out there, and then we are, I guess, sort of learning from one another. Maybe be putting language, around these things we experience to then help us sort of understand and in turn, I guess, improve self-regulation.
Okay, so maybe other people didn't relate to that, but that I shared. That's fine. So, but I'm curious, like, what about, I've had times before I knew I was autistic that I had a lot of, in my mind, like, there was a lot of imagery of me spinning, and then I've also have times of, like, mental imagery in my mind that arises, and it's me rocking. I think that it's not quite a fidget, right? But it is like stimming in my mind and it's in a visual image because I wouldn't let my body do that. Um, anyway, I wonder if that's common. I don't know. I don't know if I've heard it talked about.
Anyone visualize themselves moving their bodies in particular ways that are soothing? Getting a thumbs up from I love hearing about it because I absolutely don't. Although again, I'm a non-autistic person. I'm also a very hyper-verbal brain. Like I don't visualize things super well. So I love hearing when other people do visualize things because I would be like thinking like spin, 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 instead of seeing it, I would think the word. Go ahead.
Um, thanks. Yes, totally relate to what you're saying about the Rubik's Cube. Um, and I think that's probably the key is to notice how the thing makes us feel. And I think the differences between like Roger brought up, like maybe we can look at it as a mental fidget toy, and that really opened up my mind to thinking about, how to re-regulate the brain or whatever. And so I guess it is the difference between sort of maybe an addictive push towards something that doesn't end up feeling good versus sort of a mental stimming. And like music for sure is a good stem. List making is really good for me because it dumps a lot of things out of my head. um and I also have indeed visualized myself doing things, and one of the ones I love the most, which I want to do more often, and you've reminded me, is to do gymnastics. I cannot I can no longer do the things that I did as a child gymnastically, but I can visualize myself doing it, and it really feels good, like running and doing a tumbling sequence. And so it's almost like, Roger, you've invited me to think of like what are my mental fidget toys, and notice when I'm going toward the wrong thing and go to one of those instead.
No, thanks. And well, this is sort of just snowballing in terms of thoughts and ideas. We did have one of the last talks we had for the spring was a talk on like heavy metal music, uh, and autism, and people were somebody mentioned that you know sort of the head bobbing, and with the music was sort of like a group stim, and it was helping to regulate. Um, and that got me also thinking about like things that past experiences and how we felt when we had those experiences um, could change how we feel sort of in the moment. So um, if you're if you have great memories of something and you visualize doing that, then it may maybe bring you out of the headspace you're in and back, or temporarily in the space that you were when you were doing that thing that he had a nice memory of, So to me, it's like people listening to music they loved, or like old TV shows, things like that. Um, activities they've done, like like the ballet or the gymnastics, that it's almost like becomes like maybe like a tool, that kind of helps you self-regulate, if you find that you need it.
I'm all set. I guess I need to lower my hands.
Oh, so I was glad to hear you respond that you also experienced what I'm talking about. And interestingly enough, I tried gymnastics and my body like wouldn't like I just couldn't it didn't work at all for me. And so I quit right away, like after about a year. But what's interesting is I did spend hours and hours in childhood like spinning to classical music and doing when I was about 12 I did like so many handstands against the wall that my parents did think it was pretty odd. But they didn't know about autism back then, like it was a different diagnosis back then when I was a kid. So with the DSM. So but I love kind of how the conversation's going with the I do agree that this idea of this mental fidget, it's all getting clearer for, choosing a better, recognizing that I'm engaging in a unhealthy kind of fidget to try to regulate and be able to shift it to something, a really positive memory of, even if it's just movement. Um, but I have incorporated a lot more movement into my life, and letting myself spin again alone or dance to music alone. And then I did realize that I could actually process large emotions if I let my body move the way it needed to move, which sometimes is pretty stereotypical autistic, like rocking, but it's really helped a lot.
Yeah, I didn't know what we were going to talk about today. I'm really happy to go along this casual direction with y'all to find out. I think the things that have jumped out to me are, again, we've talked about a lot of really cool variation and how folks experience the world and social media and the internet and, the real world. And that's the other thing that I want to highlight that I think jumped out is like, internet is a place, the physical places are places. We've talked about a lot of sort of overlaps between there's sort of different things that feel doomy online and offline. And there's different types of scrolling, some of which feels doomy and some of which hasn't. So I think we've really unpacked some of these different ideas of the question of like, what does doom scrolling mean? And hopefully talked a bit about how we care for ourselves and each other today. That's the concluding thought that I have. Does anyone else have any concluding thoughts you'd like to share before we close out the Zoom? And if you want the Discord link, it is in the chat here. I'll give us another 10 seconds or so to pull that or anything else out of the chat. Well, I guess it's really Roger's chat, so you'll probably close us off, I guess. But I'll ask if we can have another 10 seconds before you close us off. And the link is newly posted in the chat, so you don't have to scroll for it. Apropos of our conversation today, you do not have to scroll for the Discord. All right, that's all for me today. I will see you all on the Discord, in the Zoom, wherever I see you. Thanks for being with us today.